Hannity, breaking tonight, we are tracking multiple developing stories, including this one. Yes, from San Francisco. Look at your screen. Fox News has exclusively obtained this security footage showing Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, at least in name only, getting her hair done at a San Francisco salon, despite local officials forcing all salons to remain closed because of coronavirus concerns. Well, as per usual, the rules don't apply to Nancy Pelosi. The owner of that salon is infuriated. We have all of those details and video coming up. Also tonight, evidence has emerged that yours truly, and others were illegally monitored by our government. Full details and a full report from John Solomon. Also tonight, we'll do something the mob and the media will never do, a special Hannity investigation into the Democrats' radical socialist agenda. We'll take a deep dive tonight into the Bernie Biden manifesto. And later, we'll also unravel the latest baseless smears from the media mob, of course, the #1 donors to the Democratic Party. Tonight, though, it is clear Democrats, they're terrified, they're desperate. Their candidate, we all know he's weak and feeble. Now, their radical socialist platform is the most extreme of any major party in history. The riots they once, well, pretty much all out, wouldn't say a negative thing about, lied about, denied were even happening. They told us they were peaceful. Then, of course, they tried to ignore them. And as a result of their lies, their failure of leadership, well, this is now completely out of control. These cities and states that have been controlled for decades by liberal Democrats are now war zones. Americans of every background, every demographic, every race, they are fleeing the Democratic Party in droves tonight. The Democratic enclave of Portland, Oregon, just experienced yet another night of rioting and mayhem. This time, rioters attempting to burn down a large occupied condo building where Portland's supportive mayor of anarchy, that's Mayor Ted Wheeler, apparently lives. Now, I wonder if fake news CNN considers this, oh yeah, see that picture? Look at that picture, to be a mostly peaceful fire, peaceful rioting. Either way, the police were forced to declare it a riot, and not before arsonists starting to feed the flames with debris, a wooden picnic table, fireworks. Now, do keep in mind that dozens of innocent men, women, and children live in that building. And guess what? These far-left demonstrators, peaceful protesters, better known as anarchists, they tried to burn it to the ground. Many other buildings in the area were also vandalized, windows shattered, businesses looted. Been watching this now for over 100 nights. It was just another night, typical day, typical evening in Portland, Oregon, a city whose dopey far-left mayor and far-left governor still refuse any and all attempted help from the president, who's basically begging them to help restore law and order. The president keeps saying daily he stands ready to help any American city or state in every way possible. But he's usually, unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, guess what? They're supposed to ask him. Typically, this is how it works. Governors and mayors, they ask for the federal help. And guess what? The president has promised to offer it, give it all. And that means mobilizing National Guard in times of lawlessness. We know how to beat back protesters. There are tools at police's disposal, non-lethal, tear gas, pepper spray. Dozens of Democratic mayors and governors apparently would rather watch their cities burn than dare coordinate with President Trump. It is sad, it is petty, frankly repulsive and disgusting. It leads to real consequences, including death and destruction. In cities where federal help has been requested, the violence has been squashed. It has been done over. Kenosha, Wisconsin, for example, the latest example, well, order has now been restored with the help of Donald Trump and the National Guard. And even Kenosha's Democratic mayor admitted, yep, the National Guard has been extremely helpful. By the way, Portland, New York, Seattle, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, learn from the mayor of Kenosha.
I will tell you, though, that the National Guard has been extremely helpful, and we feel comfortable that we can keep the president safe and keep the public safe. Mostly, we need to try to make sure that there's calm in the community, and that is what we are hoping to maintain.
And after request, the president was able to restore law and order and safety and security in Minnesota and, of course, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. That's right. The president did his job to keep people safe and secure. Sadly, in Kenosha, before the Guard was called in and order was restored, dozens of businesses were absolutely wrecked, with many completely burned to the ground. Today, the president, he toured the devastation and announced his administration was allocating $1 million for local law enforcement, $4 million in aid to the businesses that were destroyed, and $42 million to the state of Wisconsin to bolster public safety efforts. Today, one store owner had this to say about the president's visit, that the mob and the media, and of course Democrats, are saying can't happen, it can't happen. It happened, and it went along fine. Take a look.
Coming today, everybody here does. We're so thankful that we got the federal troops in to help, because once they got here, things did calm down quite a bit. And our city police and sheriff and fire departments are awesome. They work harder than you can believe.
And look at your screen. Look at the crowds of supporters all in Wisconsin. They line the street after street, mile after mile, to see President Trump's motorcade drive by. Of course, Joe Biden, he never bothered to visit Kenosha. He hasn't left the East Coast in a long time. In fact, it's been, if you're in Wisconsin, pay attention, 672 days since he last visited the great state of Wisconsin. And today, by the way, Joe Biden took a long break from campaigning. He needed to rest and relaxation. Remember that from the cartoon? After briefly stepping out of his basement bunker yesterday, delivering an extremely long 24-minute speech from an empty room, reading a teleprompter, and of course followed by 0 questions from his fawning press, the media mob, better known as state-run media. And of course, Biden is now suddenly condemning the violent riots. A little late, Joe. Remember a few weeks ago, Joe said he absolutely wants to redirect funds away from police. For months, he didn't have a single nice thing to say about any of the brave men and women that put their lives on the line daily. That's police around the country that protect and serve in very difficult circumstances. The 99% of good cops. Biden's campaign staffers actually donated to a fund that helped get rioters out of jail. He promises that he'll have a no bond policy, no bail policy, just like New York. Kamala Harris actually promoted this idiotic fund. Now, all of a sudden, they're backtracking 63 days before an election, and Joe and Kamala are attempting an election time conversion, but not because they really care about the violence and destruction. Instead, for them, it's all about the polls. Look at this. According to Pew, the ongoing riots are now a top 2020 concern for all Americans, and it should be. Meanwhile, a brand new Emerson poll shows that Trump and Biden are in a statistical dead heat, the president closing the gap among suburban voters and minorities. Look at this. The president is now polling 24% with African-American voters. That is 3 times the support he garnered in 2016. If that number holds, this election or re-election is over. And of course, the media mob, they're working overtime to help rescue Joe and his struggling campaign. In the last 24 hours, they absolutely trashed President Trump for daring to visit the destruction in Kenosha. Well, the president restored order. He did it in Minnesota. He can do it in New York, Chicago, Portland, and Seattle if they just let him. Take a look.
Tomorrow, despite protests from officials there who think his presence will only inflame matters.
As protests in Kenosha enter their 2nd week, the city braces for a controversial presidential visit.
And in Kenosha, officials tonight bracing for the president's planned visit tomorrow.
This is a city that has now seen days of peace, quiet, people getting along. There's a lot of unity right now in this city. And the biggest concern from them is that to have the president come here is just going to turn that all around. For a lot of people tomorrow, I think they're bracing for what's to come.
And there at Fake News CNN, the panic is really setting in. Without a shred of evidence, they have one of their dumb so-called political analysts, a Clinton-Obama sycophant, probably the dumbest press secretary in history, his name Joe Lockhart, floating a whole new conspiracy theory that the president of the United States suffered a series of mini strokes and he's hiding from the American people. Broad daylight, out every day, answering questions. Just more lies, more fake news, more conspiracy theories from CNN. The president's doctors, they said 1,000% false. So where's the apology for yet more lies and more hoaxes and more conspiracies from CNN? They are just repulsive. Lockhart, the left, they are stricken. They're throwing anything and everything at the wall in the hopes that something sticks. Look at what they allowed this lying jackass Lockhart to say about Nicholas Sandmann. By the way, I hope Linwood sues CNN again. He's already gotten a lot of money. And by the way, Dr. Lockhart, your candidate, the frail, the weak Joe Biden, does he seem, Joe, if you're so intelligent, does this guy seem very mentally alert to you? Let's take a look at the videotape.
Tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330.
We choose truth over facts.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Hey, Dr. Lockhart, what's your diagnosis there? Now, make no mistake, the mob, the media, the Democrats, they're in full panic mode. And sadly, in the next 63 days, I promise you it will only get worse. Just listen to what President Trump had to say about the mob earlier today.
The press should be ashamed of themselves. I think the press is actually, the media is what's fueling this, more so than even Biden, because Biden doesn't know he's alive. The press is really fueling this, and they're fueling it horribly. And you're doing a great disservice to your country.
They lie in unison. The same words, the same phrases, the same talking points. The mob, the media, they are the biggest donors to all things radical democratic socialist. And Biden's answered less than 50 questions since March, and they're letting him get away with it. But let not your heart be troubled. The mob, the media, guess what? They are not in control of the future. You, the American people, in 63 days, you have the power. I don't have it. They don't have it to shock the world again.